Well, the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse is challenging the National Energy Regulator on what it calls secrecy about the decision to award generating licences to Karpowership. Let me remind you, last year, NERSA granted 3 licences to Karpowership SA at Saldanha, Coega and Richards Bay, but the financial implications are being hidden according to Outa. Let's find out the details. Brendan Slate, Outa's Energy Project Manager. Morning to you, Brendan, and I appreciate the time as always. Why is Outa suggesting that this is being hidden? Where's this coming from?
Good morning, Gareth. Thanks for having me this morning. First of all, I just want to go back in time a little bit. Outa, in April of last year, filed a review application against NERSA for the granting of these 3 generation licenses. So in terms of the notice of motion, we asked for the approval or the decision, therefore, to be set aside. But in accordance with the court rules, specifically Rule 53, we also sought the full and unredacted record behind these decisions. So this record is not only important for us to advance the litigation so that we can reach finality and reach some kind of court finding, but it's also important as the financial implications are contained in that information. This is, amongst other things, important because our argument primarily on why it's irrational to grant the licenses in the first place is because it would be to the economical detriment of the country.
One could argue, though, Brendan, and I don't think many people would disagree with you, but help me unpack this argument. Also, economically detrimental is the ongoing power cuts. I suppose we've got to choose our evil. We've got to choose our medicine, don't we?
No, sure thing, Gareth. But we like to use the analogy of killing an ant with a shotgun when it comes to Karpowership. There's been a lot of rhetoric the last couple of weeks on the misconception that Karpowership would end load shedding. So just to put the record straight on that, we are currently in a deficit of around 5,000 to 6,000 megawatts of generation capacity. And if we just consider what the bid's capacity was at the time, Karpowership won the bid for around 1,200 megawatts. So that's around 1 stage of load shedding. So sure thing, it may alleviate the energy crisis, but then we go over to the cost. So at the time of the bid, the cost to generate electricity through Karpowership was at around R1.50 per kilowatt hour. It then escalated through to around R2.80 per kilowatt hour, and the experts that we consulted when we launched this application has now estimated that price to be around R5 per kilowatt hour.
Sure.
And we just need to remember that because the fuel component of Karpowership is gas, that is obviously linked to the notion of supply and demand. And the conflict in Ukraine currently, it's shooting demand and the price up even further. So it would be a very expensive deal for South Africa if this is to proceed.
And absolutely, and I suppose the concern as well now, Brendan, is if as is being suggested, a possible state of disaster does come into place, it's not difficult to imagine Karpowership, the deal, whatever this deal takes shape or however it takes shape, is going to be pushed through. Because under a state of disaster, government can pretty much do what they want. What's the concern there, or have I misread what a state of disaster is?
No, sure thing. It's warranted to be concerned over a state of disaster. I mean, we've learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, but unfortunately, at this time, we cannot anticipate that the worst will happen. It would obviously all depend on the regulations that will be promulgated when or if and when a state of disaster is declared. But on the other hand, it may also open the gates for the coming online of additional generation capacity through independent power producers. So on the one hand, it's a good thing. It may streamline the process to get that generation capacity online. But on the other side, I mean, government's credibility, specifically if we go back to the PPE procurement disasters, I mean, we have reason to be concerned about it. But as Outa, as a civil action organization, we will certainly keep an eye out on any developments in this space.
And just as you do that, in a final question to you, as I say goodbye to you, Brendan, I just want to clarify Outa's position on this. Outa is not against Karpowership. It's just the way it's being handled, the hidden financial costs, etc. So in your mind, could Karpowership work if what needs to happen? So are you against it entirely, or could it work if certain conditions were there? And if so, what were those? Just sum it up for me as I say goodbye.
All right. No, we are against Karpowership because there are alternative resolutions available that's much cheaper. The other thing is, should Karpowership pack up and leave, we will not have that generation capacity as a South African asset. On the other hand, if we utilize that 200 odd billion rand to install and create our own generation capacity, we will have assets that will generate for the future to come.
And I appreciate your time as always, Brendan. I'm sure we'll talk again. Brendan Slate, Outa's Energy Project Manager as well. We'd love to get your thoughts on what Outa's view on this is as well. We are always welcome to get your comments in. You can tweet us at ENCA. You can also leave your comments on our Facebook page. It's ENCA News as well.